let you say hello first.
Oh, great. I never get to do this. Welcome to Ask a Reporter. I'm Amelia and this is Nathan. And today we are talking about my story from last week, or from this week. This week? Oh, it's going crazy. I'm forgetting which day of the week it is.
She's already thinking about her story for next week.
Already on to next week. This is the thing at BTN. We work a little bit ahead because it goes to air and then we're immediately on to the next stories. But my story from this week was the happiness report, the World Happiness Report. Man, I see why you do this every time, the intro.
No, I thought you were doing well.
I messed it up. Oh. Anyway, okay, so yeah, we're talking about the world's happiness and what makes people happy.
Isn't it a good subject to start talking about happiness?
It's a fun one to talk about.
I really like it. Like sometimes,
it too.
you know, in the news there are sad things that happen and it's really important to know about, but sometimes it's good to know about happiness too.
Exactly.
So we got heaps of questions from you guys.
But you have to remember that sometimes with happiness there has to be sadness as
True.
well to be able to, you know, to be happy you need some sadness. So
bringing us down.
But I'm sorry, I don't mean to bring everyone down, but we're going to talk about both in a way. So yes.
Before we start,
shall we?
can you just give me a bit of a rundown if there were people out there that weren't watching?
Yeah.
Actually, before I say that, I should just say we don't have any Queensland schools because of the floods and all that sort of stuff there. So
yes.
for any Queensland schools that are watching this on repeat on our website later, hello, hope everything's well. We're all thinking of you.
Thinking of you.
And New South Wales, Northern New South Wales as well. So goodbye to those schools. I hope everything goes well and we will see you back on board.
Next week. Or not next week.
Well, next term.
Next term.
Yeah.
Because it's holidays. Yes, sorry. So you were going to ask me something?
Yeah, jumping in.
Yeah.
Can you give anyone that didn't see your story just a bit of a recap of what you talked about in your happiness report story?
Sure can. So basically, this story is about a report, a big, massive report that happens every year, and it's happened every year since 2012. And it's called the World Happiness Report, and it is supported by the UN, the United Nations. So basically, they ask all these different countries about, or people from these different countries, about how happy they are about their lives. So really, it's just about sort of working out what makes people happy, and it's not as simple as you think. Which I might go into with the questions because I don't know what you guys are asking, but that's the gist of it. If you missed it.
Well, there are heaps of questions, so let's jump straight in.
Let's do it.
And we'll start off with Kalani today. Why do we have a happiness survey in the first place? What's the purpose? Why do we care if people are happy or not?
So as I might even get into a little bit more soon, but yeah, basically the whole idea is to be able to actually kind of give governments some idea of things that they could possibly work on to make their citizens happier. So that's sort of the main point of the report. So you might know the United Nations is often involved in these kind of things. It's an organisation which is tasked with keeping peace around the world and security and you know all sorts of different things, and aid, helping other countries. So in a way, this is part of it. It's kind of meant to help countries and help them to work out the best way to run things, and also kind of point out differences between countries and why some people might be happier than others. Because a lot of it comes down, at times anyway, to government policies, which is interesting because it's probably not the thing you really think about when someone says, what makes you happy? Oh, the government doing great things. It's not my first thought. My first thought was popcorn and chocolate, if you saw my story.
Yeah.
And cat videos, which I hinted at last week, you guys might remember. That was my hint.
You do.
Did any of you get it? I love cats.
Do you love chocolate? Do love popcorn?
They're my favourite, but the cat
I love
was
all
a
of those
clue.
things
I love
too,
cats.
but
Do you
probably
like
not
cats?
as much as you.
Oh yeah, you have a cat. He has a very cute cat. It's a kitten, or it was.
Well, it was. It's grown
getting
now.
a bit older now. Yeah, they do tend to do that.
It's like a teenager cat now.
Yeah, it's a teenage cat. Yeah.
Anyway.
Getting a bit rebellious.
Well, yeah, sometimes. That doesn't make me happy.
Oh, it's so cute though.
Anyway, it is very
but anyway, yeah, so that's the gist.
Cool. Kai wants to know what sort of useful information did the survey give us? What can we do with this information that comes out of the survey?
So the kind of information that comes from it is obviously they list the countries, which you would have seen in my story. So Norway was the happiest country in the world, apparently at the moment, according to this survey. So if you're Norwegian, don't know why you left. Just kidding. Australia.
They might be watching from here.
We might be watching from there.
The internet, they can watch from anywhere.
Yes, but Norway looks like actually such a nice place. And yes, apparently according to the people who live there, it is a really nice place. And so yeah, basically the happiness report, should I go into the whole thing? I'll go into the whole thing.
Sure.
So the happiness report surveys people every year, so they have, it's a bit complicated how they actually do all the surveying, but basically they get sample sizes of say like 1,000 people in each country, and then they do that every year, and then they sort of take data from previous years and they put it all together and they work out these things, and averages and stuff like that, and then they rank the countries. So they have the happiest countries, they rank more than 150 countries actually, so you have all of those ranked from happiest to not so happy, and so the top 10 countries, Australia was in there, it was 9th. Norway was the top one, and like the top like 5 or so were all European, and so then you have a lot of countries at the bottom which aren't as happy, and yeah, so that comes down to all these different factors. Some of them I talked about in my story, but yeah, basically they look at sort of different things like freedom. So yeah, freedom to do what you like and to live the way you want to, freedom to go places, all sorts of things. And then we have, I wrote them down here so I wouldn't forget them all. Generosity. So, I mean, that one's an interesting one, I thought. Generosity, I believe it's sort of just the ability to be able to be generous and to feel like you can, give money away or be kind to others and stuff like that. So that's almost, I think, tied to freedom. Health is a really massive one. Then we have social support, which is very government related as well. So that's stuff like welfare and even, things like maternity leave, and which is when, when you have a baby and you can go and take a certain amount of time off. And then the same goes for, that's mums and dads. So like in Norway, for instance, there's paternity leave, which is the dad's thing, and we also have that in Australia. And then we have income, which I mentioned in my story as well, so how much people earn, and a trustworthy government. So a lot of those are very government related, really. So trustworthy government is not having someone who's corrupt in government, and in a lot of African countries, that's a really big factor, unfortunately, and that is part of the reason some of those ended up towards the bottom of the happiness scale. Yes, so I'll let you guys ask another question just in case I'm covering too much.
No, that's good. This one doesn't have a name on it, but they have asked, we in primary school have asked, how might other countries be able to increase their happiness? So you mentioned there some of the factors. What can governments do about this? Yeah, so, I mean, it's a lot about policies. So if you look even at the past, if we just looked at, say, Australia, you would know that you might know anyway, that there were times when things, were very different. So you might have really bad working conditions, and there weren't any unions or anything to speak up for those workers. So there would be, say, bad working conditions, people wouldn't get paid as much, women wouldn't get paid as much as men, all these different things. You wouldn't have any maternity leave or paternity leave. You might not get, free healthcare, which we have in Australia, universal healthcare, and a lot of the all of the top 10 countries actually have universal healthcare, which means you don't have to necessarily pay for healthcare or have an insurance company pay for it for you, which means like if you're poor or you don't have enough money, then it can be really difficult, and that's a big thing in places like America. So yeah, things like this, I mean, there are all these policies that have developed over time then, so our government brought in stuff like, equal pay, and you can't discriminate against people. So all these things then kind of actually contribute to people's happiness, because I'm a lot happier, getting paid enough and not having to work in a dangerous environment. I'm sure you are too. Stuff like that. And things around the office. Very dangerous.
You're just stuck though, so it's fun. But yeah, so all these things you can kind of think about, you can imagine they kind of make you happier. So like the freedom for you guys to be able to go to school and get an education, whether or not your parents, might, if your parents hypothetically didn't have lots of money, it doesn't mean that you suddenly can't go to school, you know what I mean? That we have free education. You can go to uni, for instance, when you're older, and you can then just get a loan from the government if you have to, so you don't pay anything immediately, and you pay that off bit by bit, and you don't pay lots of interest on top of that, so you don't keep paying more and more over the years that you're paying back that loan. So stuff like this. And interestingly, in Norway, I think a few of the reasons why it was one of the top countries is because, or the happiest country, sorry, is because it has a lot of these kind of policies which make people really happy. So they actually have free uni, so it's entirely free uni. So they don't actually even have that loan that they pay back once they start working like we do in Australia, which is still a pretty great system here, but theirs is just one step further where people just don't pay anything. So you can go, oh, I want to study this thing, and you go to uni and you learn. And you don't pay anything for it. And then you have the universal health care. They have quite a good economy, and they sort of have a government which looks to the future and plans a lot for the economy in the future, and you know, thinks about debt and things like that. And yeah, like it's all these different factors. So there's a lot there. Sorry, I'm just like blabbing, but
happiness is a good topic.
It's actually really interesting, because you guys might think, or some people might think, oh, money makes you happy. And I mean, it can be good. Money's all right. I'm all right with money, because then I get to go buy things, and that's nice. And also it's a reason to come to work, other than just because I like it. But you know, so you might think, I don't know if I'm again covering some more of your questions. I reckon there was one there about America. You might think, oh, a place like America, why wouldn't that be the happiest country in the world? And in fact, it dropped on the list from 14 to 15 from last year. So there are sort of different factors that the World Happiness Report says are to do with that kind of thing, why countries that appear like they would be so happy and they're wealthy, you know, they're developed countries, there is no particular war in that country, there's no famine happening. Why aren't they happy? Do you wonder that?
Yeah.
Like, you know, but it's because it doesn't necessarily just come down to money. It's really not just about that. It's about a lot more.
Good life lesson.
Yes.
The thing that really interests me about it is things like universal healthcare that most of us don't access very regularly through our lives at all. Just the knowledge that it's there makes a lot of people happy. Just that safety net, the fact that people won't be caught. That is one of these main things that can create happiness. So it doesn't mean it's something that you use every day. It could just be the knowledge that it's there if you really need it. And
exactly.
that's really
so that's almost like part of the freedom almost. I think I even mentioned it in the story as well. So it's like, like knowing that you have a safety net. I think one of the Norwegian people in my story actually said that. Like, oh, you have a safety net, so you can know that, okay, so if I have, you know, grow up and I have kids and I have a family, they will be okay even if I lose my job, because I'll be able to go on welfare or something, you know, or I'll have assistance to find another job, and they'll still get healthcare even if I don't have enough money to pay for it. So it's just all these like interesting little things to think about.
Cool. Two questions that are very similar from Calvin and Edward. Calvin asks, why is Australia 9th? Because I'm pretty happy. I'm glad to hear that, Calvin.
I'm glad to hear that too.
That's very good.
I'm pretty happy. Yeah, we're pretty happy people.
Yeah, we're good.
Even if you are you're slightly off the screen today. Maybe we'll move over. Did you notice that?
Hi.
That was making me unhappy. There we go.
Really?
Yeah, look, now we're central.
I'm happy
okay.
Hang on my little corner. Sit in the corner and just
I brought an iPad today too, just so I could be, a tablet, just so I could be like Nathan.
All tech.
Nathan Baisley.
Calvin's happy.
Sorry.
And also,
Calvin's happy. Calvin's happy. All right,
Calvin's happy. Also, Edward asks, why isn't Australia first? We're not in famine. Our government's not corrupt.
Yeah.
Why aren't we first?
Really good question.
Great questions.
We are 9th, which is still like pretty high on the list there. But yeah, so basically there are different reasons, I suppose. Like I said, I'll talk more generally rather than just about Australia, but I mean, the things I said before, like there are always ways to improve. So even Norway and Norwegian people would definitely say that there are still ways of improving their country, and the government can improve it in different ways. Often that is the where that change can kind of start with those policies like I spoke about earlier. So I guess we're pretty happy people in Australia, but at the same time, I'm sure, according to this survey, there are definitely things that could be changed, whether it's different policies or ideas about our country's future, ways people want the government to spend Australia's money, all sorts of things like that. So I don't know specifically, but yeah, I think every country definitely has ways to improve their happiness, and who knows, maybe in the future we'll get right up there with Europe.
There's a few questions here that for some reason aren't coming up on this screen.
Oh, yeah,
they're coming up on this one here. So I'm going to go to some of them now.
Sure.
We'll start with Audrey. Is there one specific thing that can make a country really happy, or is it a mixture of all the things?
Yeah, cool. So Audrey, I would say it's definitely a mixture of all the things. So like I was saying before, something like income, it might seem like, you know, one of the most important things. But at the same time, if you actually speak to some people who live in these developing countries, it doesn't necessarily mean they're really unhappy people. If you actually meet some, they're some of the happiest people around, and they're always smiling, and because, you know, they don't have lots of money, but they have their families and they find joy in other things. So I think it's lots of different factors that make people happy, and even this list isn't definitive. It doesn't mean that everybody in all of these countries are like super happy in the top 10, and Norwegians are all like, yay, all the time, even though they did have lots of buskers playing really nice music and stuff. But
that makes me happy.
It makes me happy too. But you know, it's pretty cold there as well. I was pretty surprised.
That would make me unhappy.
Yes, and fun fact, in some parts of Norway, it's really dark. In fact, in one town, the sun just like doesn't rise for one, I think it's at least one day a year. So it's just darkness. And it's very dark in winter in a lot of Norway. So these are interesting things, but it doesn't matter. It's still like the best country ever. And I guess they get in like, you know, summer they'll get more light, so that's always fun. They'll probably have really long days, I believe.
True.
But you know, so there are still going to be unhappy people there. There
I'm
are
happy when I'm
unhappy people
warm.
everywhere. So
I've got to say.
See, I actually really like cold weather, so maybe I should move to Norway because I would enjoy it.
Okay, you can be our Norway reporter.
Anyway, I forgot what the question was. I hope I answered it, Audrey.
I believe you did. Rameth wants to know, does the UN ask every person in these countries if they're happy, or does it work differently?
Oh my goodness, that would be kind of difficult, I think.
Difficult.
You would have to go through like a census type thing, and I don't know if everyone does a census. So, no, they definitely don't ask anyone, especially in somewhere like China. There are like so many people, and India. But what they do is they just take a sample size. So they take, say, like I said, about 1,000 people in every country, and they ask those people to rate from like 0 to 10 how happy they are with their lives, and then I think they have like a little, you know, little extra questions and things to rate. So how happy are you with your life, Nathan?
Oh, that's deep.
I'm sorry.
Well, today's cold, so I'm less happy than I was yesterday.
Oh, see, I'm happy. Well, yesterday was kind of cold too. Do you mean like last week?
Yes.
Yeah, because last week was warm.
Last week was quite
I am
warm.
very happy in cooler weather. I really enjoy cooler weather.
See?
I like jumpers.
You feed off my happiness.
It's hot in this room though. It's always hot
when
here.
it's cold, and I feed off your happiness when it's hot. So therefore, at some point, all of us are happy.
Wait, you feed off my happiness when it's hot, but it's the other way.
Anyway.
But yes, look, it's an interesting thing to think about. But you know what? As kids, I wonder, like, how much, like, what makes you guys happy? It was interesting, like, kind of asking. Because some kids said like family and friends and stuff, and then there were other just like little things like playing sport or eating really nice food. And on like a you know, just a day-to-day level, I think those are kind of the things that do make people really happy.
Yeah.
But it's these even bigger things that are actually happening around you in your country that allow you to have the freedom and the time and the resources to be able to do these other fun things, like go out for dinner or have time to spend with your family. Whereas in some countries, they're less happy. You know, kids are busy working because they have to, you know, that's child labour, and they're working to get money for their families, so they don't have as much time to spend with them and stuff like that. So it's interesting to think we are very lucky in Australia in many ways. Very happy.
Una wants to know, you'll probably need your iPad for this one, because it's going through the rankings.
Oh, yeah, okay.
What is the most happy country in Asia? That's from Una in Singapore, our friends at Hillside.
Ooh.
Hello,
well,
I will let Amelia
I do have a whole
search for
list
this
here, so let me
through
see
the list. Because there's lots and lots of countries on that list.
There are a lot
and
of countries.
Una wants to know the happiest one in Asia, but it's very interesting to know where they are.
I think, if I've read through that correctly, it's Taiwan. Oh, Singapore! Oh my goodness, it's Singapore! Oh,
it's
sorry,
Singapore.
I thought I missed one because I was scrolling through. Yeah, okay, so it's Singapore. You didn't see any above that? Did you already know that?
No, I didn't.
Well, that's funny. Was that a Singapore question?
Yes, that's from Singapore. You guys are the happiest in Asia.
Yay! I hope
Well
you all
done.
have big smiles on your face, and well done. So, Singapore, you come in at 26, which is pretty high. So, yeah, it's pretty amazing. Like, the United Kingdom, for instance, has come in at 19. Yeah. So, when you think about it, Australia, we've done pretty well being 9, actually, then.
Yeah, there's a lot of great countries.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys had a look at this as well. So just a bit
badly.
above us, like it's not just European countries. Sort of out of the top 10, the extra ones that aren't really European are Australia and New Zealand, who's one ahead of us. those Kiwis, and Canada.
As long as we can beat them in the cricket.
And then up there it's all Europe in the top 6.
So we did
Canada.
well. Canada,
So
yeah.
Canada.
Again, cold. What is it with
How's
cold
that
countries?
accent? I'm sorry if anyone's Canadian. That was terrible.
I'm not okay with that.
Yeah.
Savannah wants to know, do you think countries will start trying to change their happiness rank?
Will they? I don't know. I feel like some places would be likely to dismiss this survey to a degree. But I mean, I don't know. I think anything that sort of tells you ways that you can help your people be happier should really be taken on board. But I don't know if they necessarily will. But I mean, I hope so personally, because it's a pretty important thing, especially for countries that are lower on the list. But it's really hard. There are so many complicated factors there. You know, with somewhere like Syria, it's just so complicated and so many issues and an absolute war. And then you have other countries down there who have also had war before and are going through famine. Yeah, it's a pretty tough one. But I guess it makes you kind of go from an Australian perspective. You've got to always remember, like I said before, that you are actually very lucky compared to a lot of countries to be right up there on the list and be that happy. So, you know, I always try to always remember that. And also that, you know, there are people who still need a lot of help and aren't as lucky. So I think it's just a good thing to at least take that away, and hopefully governments will do the same. So things like aid and stuff are very important.
That leads into our next question very well. Ethan J wants to know, how can we help make Australia happier?
Happier. I say more cats.
More cats, more chocolate.
Or maybe not more cats, because you don't want feral cats and you don't want to like be irresponsible about it. More cats in offices, like in major cities, maybe like kids' TV shows, offices where that sort of thing is made.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
That
so
doesn't sound like you're trying to put any pressure on about a cat at all.
Oh, no. No, I didn't mean us necessarily. I just meant like places like this.
Maybe I could get the cats writing stories. They might be really good at that.
They'll tap with their little paws.
That would make me happy if I had an army of cats that could write stories for the show.
Isn't it meant to be monkeys? Isn't that the old thing?
Yeah, but cats
typewriters.
Cats are very intelligent. They
and
would be very good
eventually,
at
all
it.
the monkeys will write a masterpiece.
It's War and Peace for BTN.
If you leave this, isn't that the thing?
I feel like cats probably wouldn't do that. I feel like they'd start writing the story, and then they'd get bored.
Oh, they would get so bored. They'd be like,
just start clawing a couch somewhere.
I don't want to do this, and then they'd walk away.
And then just.
And then when you went and sat where they were, they would come up and they'd jump on the computer and they'd just tap all the keys by accident. You know that this actually happened to my mum. Yeah, our family cat. She was like sitting at her computer and it jumped up and it started walking across the keyboard and it messed up the entire computer. It went to all these like crazy colours and she could not work out how to fix it. So it's like it had done a shortcut of some weird shortcut with like its paws, because it was probably pressing about 4 keys at once.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and
that's
it had
a clever cat.
Things.
Knows what it's doing.
Probably knew
Cats,
too.
they're devious. That's how they get
Some
you.
are devious. Not all. Some are just cute and fluffy and adorable.
Yeah, you're just thinking about kittens now, aren't you?
I like cats too. I'm not one of those people.
Tarnish wants to know, why did they decide to start asking about happiness? Like, what's the benefit?
I think that happiness. I don't know. I think it's, well, like I said, they kind of started doing it, I think, because of they're wanting to know where different countries sit, I think, when it comes to something like happiness, so that you can talk about policies and why countries might drop from on the list or rise on the list and things like that, and then other countries can learn from those countries. You know, like there were some Norwegians in my story, which I didn't put in, but they were just saying, you know, oh, why, I don't understand why America can't be like us, you know, they could just be the exact same sort of thing and have free healthcare and do this and that. So, you know, it's interesting to see that how things could change. So I think that's the main reason they did it, so that it is something they can provide to governments and information for people to have out there and know. But I also think just happiness is very important, you know, whether you call it happiness or not, just that being able to have that freedom and all those aspects that they say make people happy, super important kind of stuff, you know, because I think that's how this is a bit weird. I'm like diverging. I'm going everywhere with this, but it kind of
just makes her happy.
It does make me happy. This story makes me happy. It's kind of like, you know, if you have like those factors that they say make people happy, like freedom in particular, I think is a massive one, and having all the other things that allow you to have time to do other things, then it means that you can, you know, even if it's something like be educated, and then you can become a scientist, and you can work out a cure for cancer, and you can do all these things. And this is stuff that you can't do if you know, don't have access to any schooling or education, and you know, all these little factors that they say make people happy. It's not just the whole just let's make everyone happy. It's the things that get you there that are really important, I think. So yeah, so I think it's just it's very important. It's a very important topic.
2 quick questions from Darius, Mr. Fitz's class.
Hello.
What country is the least happy?
Oh, the least happy ones. Oh, you should have warned me. I had to get my iPad out.
Sorry,
again.
I should have warned you. I didn't know.
My memory isn't great. Look, I did mention a few of them. Syria was in there as one of the lowest countries, unfortunately. That's very, very sad.
Predominantly because of, while you're looking, the war that is happening there now. And obviously, I think they said just yesterday or the day before, 5 million people have left Syria since the war began. So that's a huge amount of people leaving the country. And the reason for that is because things are not good there right now. Yes,
so you'll actually find that a lot of the lowest countries on the list who are less happy than the other ones we've mentioned, a lot of them you might meet a lot of refugees from these countries. I know I have, because they have had to flee their home because of different reasons like war. So I've met a kid from Burundi before, and from the Central African Republic. So the Central African Republic is the lowest on the list, and Burundi is just above that. Also Africa, and Tanzania is Africa as well. Then there's Syria and Rwanda. So they're the lowest 5. So yeah, like I said, I've met a couple of refugee kids before when we were doing our welcome book and interviewing some kids. So yeah, they had to leave their homes, and so that gives you like a bit of an idea of just why these countries are low on the list. If you have people desperately needing to leave, then that kind of explains that it's not a very safe, happy place to be, unfortunately. But we can only hope that, yeah, with help from aid organisations and hopefully changes in governments and things like that, and world peace. But like seriously though, you know, this kind of stuff, like hopefully they can move up on the list. But yeah, that's that really.
Yeah, very good. We are literally over time, but just before we finish...
Sorry, I blabbed on for ages.
Darius wants to quickly know what makes us happy. You've already said...
Who, me?
Yeah. You've already said...
Can I say some other things? Oh, no, you go first.
No, say some other things.
No, your turn.
I needed to think.
Oh, okay, I didn't need to.
I had all that time to think.
Okay, so things that make me happy. I really like sunshine on a cold day. Oh. I know that sounds weird, but that is the best.
I get that.
It's so nice, isn't it? What else do I like? I kind of like it when it rains. I mean, these are all weather related. I like, popcorn and chocolate I mentioned. Pasta. I really like pasta. I like hanging out with friends. I like watching movies, listening to music, reading books. I totally like reading books, which is what one of the kids in my story said. What about you?
Okay, for me, sound of rain on the roof and the smell of rain.
Oh, that's nice.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Lightning. Love that.
This coming from Mr. I only like warm weather.
Yeah, but like a warm storm, like a tropical storm.
Oh, nah.
But not like a
Can you
big
tell
one
he's
that's
from
dangerous or anything like that.
He
Just
likes,
a nice, moderate,
kind of weather.
really heavy downpour, then everything's fine afterwards storm.
Yeah, I mean, not this.
Love that. That's fantastic. Riding a motorbike. Quite like that. Good TV show, good movie, good book.
It's interesting. It's quite similar.
I do like sitting next to a fire.
Ooh, I like a winter fire.
Yeah,
that's always
winter
nice.
or summer fire or anywhere in between.
Yeah.
So those kinds of things
shopping.
are nice.
Shopping's fun for me.
It's really good thinking of things that make you happy because it makes you happy just thinking about them.
It makes you happy thinking about them. Isn't it true?
That's very nice.
Let's just go be happy and do our work, which makes us really happy, right, Nathan?
A lovely place to end. Thank you very much for joining us and sending in all your questions.
Guys.
We will be back next week with Amelia in the seat again, and she's going to be talking about getting rid of all of the money in Australia.
Ooh.
Not that we're becoming poor, but getting rid of cash.
Are we
just
taking it
cards.
all because it makes us happy?
Ooh. I'll take it. Thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you next week
for
Ask a Reporter.
Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Bye.